and welcome back to Woollen Hearted. I hope that you're well. I hope you've had a good few weeks since we last spoke. I think in the end it's been about a month since I last recorded. Just daily life ended up taking over and I didn't end up getting a chance to film again in the month of August. We're now in mid-September. Tomorrow is the equinox. So that will be the start of autumn, which I'm really excited about. I really love the energy around the autumn equinox. It's really a time of year that I feel re-energized and sort of relieved, I think, to be over the heat and the busyness of summer, and going into a more withdrawn, more quieter, calmer period of the year. And of course, like a lot of knitters, I love autumn, so I also really love winter. So I'm really happy to be moving into this new part of the year. It's strange to be talking about autumn equinox though, because the last week it's been so hot. This last week of summer has really been like high summer again. We've had temperatures up in the 30s and hot sunny days for the past sort of 10 days. So we actually ended up taking an impromptu camping trip by the sea. So where we live in the Pyrenees, we're about 2.5 hours from the western coast of France, which is the Atlantic Ocean. So we drove over last week, and we had a really wonderful time camping by the sea in a lovely family orientated little campsite. It was quite quiet because it's the school holidays are over. So we were able to enjoy the quiet and the calm, and particularly enjoy going to the beaches every day. We were near 3 different beaches within walking distance, so we were able to explore them fully at both high and low tide. And we eventually settled on our favourite beach, which was one that had a low tide, 2 natural kind of swimming pools in the sand, which was lovely. They were deep enough to be able to swim in, so that was perfect for the children. And it was really pleasurable to see how the children evolved over the week, how they started building up a relationship with the sea, which really excites me as I grew up beside the sea. I'm really happy to observe that in them, and both children seem to have come back as if they've grown up a little bit, which is, you know, quite interesting. It's amazing how time away can help us to evolve and move on and refocus and re-energize. And I've been feeling that energy myself, being outside nearly all day long for almost a week really restored me, and I found just sitting quietly on the beach beside the children as they were playing, or with my knitting, watching the tides, watching the birds, watching the sea, the waves, the sand shifting. It's done me the world of good. The sea is really a place where I feel very at home, and it's all very familiar to me. The seabirds, the seashells, I know what everything's called from my childhood. So even though I've never been to that part of the ocean before, on the Basque country, it all felt very familiar, and that I think is quite restorative sometimes. And it was really fun as well, because I took a knitting project with me. So I picked up again my cozy memory blanket, which has just been on a little break over the summer. I just decided when we got to the summer solstice that I was gonna stop for a couple of months just to give myself a breather and just do other things. So I was really happy to pick that up again, and I managed to make quite a lot of progress on it. So I'm going to show you that first. I'm in the middle of a square, so I have to excuse the needle, but I'm now working on my 10th row, so it's getting really big. I can't even show you the whole thing. It's definitely the size of a lap blanket now, which is really nice. And when I've finished this row, so I've got 1, 2, 3 squares to do there and 3 squares to do there, I'm gonna decide whether I want to keep it as a square or start making it more like a rectangle. Haven't yet decided if it's going to be for the couch or if it's going to be for a bed. If it's for a bed, it would be for a single bed. It would be for one of the children. If it's for the sofa, I'll continue making it a square, I think. So yeah, I'm really enjoying that, and it was just as before when I was working on this project, I found that going back to this colour palette really uplifting and really exciting creatively. This is my basket of happiness, so I've still got loads and loads of yarn left to go. So quite a lot of it is Jameson's and Smith. There's Jumper 2-ply, there's Spindrift by Jameson's of Shetland, or I can never remember which one's which. And then I've also got some yarn that I recycled from a Shetland jumper, second-hand jumper, and there's some French yarn too, which I've shown you before. So I'm currently just deciding whether to buy a tiny bit more yarn, because I would quite like this to be quite big, and if I add in some different colours, I don't want it to sort of be a sudden jump. It would still be in the blues and the yellows and the greens and the neutrals, light greys and the whites, but yeah, I've got a little shopping basket going on at the moment, and I'm trying to pluck up the courage to click buy, because really I shouldn't be buying any more yarn at the moment. The idea of this blanket was to use up not my whole stash, but use up a significant amount of stash yarn, so got to decide. But I only have 2 yellows, and I've almost used up all 3. I think I have 3. Yeah, this one I really like, but I only had a little bit of leftover, so I'd like a few more yellows. I'd like a darker blue again. This very first one, I love this blue, but I don't have any more of it. Again, I just had one little scrap, so it would be nice to just add in oh no, it's this blue, this darker blue. It would be nice just to add in a few more colours now, before it sort of, yeah, makes too much of a contrast. But as I was saying, having these colours on my needles, and I took just a few with me every day to the beach, there was something really wonderful about sitting on the sand and having these colours on my needles, and then looking up and seeing these colours around me in the coast, and obviously the sea, and then the sand and the sky, and the vegetation that was coming down the cliff to the seaside. And it's really just grounded me in this realisation, or it's affirmed for me this realisation that these colours are my colours, and this is my colour palette, and along with grey and along with white. Yeah, and it's really exciting because I've been in a bit of a quest for this for a few years, trying to really decide on what colours I want to work with when I knit and when I sew, what colours I want in my clothes, in my wardrobe, what colours I want around the house. I grew up loving blue and loving green, and then in my early 20s, a few people used to make comments about, oh, you're always in blue, or oh, blue and green shouldn't go together, or things like that, and it kind of knocked my confidence. And I've tried different colours in my wardrobe, and particularly in my natural dyeing. In recent years I began, like quite a lot of people do, with walnuts, so the browns, which I love, and then reds through madder, reds and pinks and oranges. And while I absolutely loved the process of putting those colours onto yarn, I don't like them. I don't like knitting with them. I don't want them in my wardrobe. They're not my colours at all. And so I've got quite a large amount of yarn now that I think I'm going to donate to our son's old Waldorf school for the children, because I've got like a plastic tub with a lid on full of it, and I just don't want to knit with it. I don't get any pleasure from it. And yet the sort of contrast is when I have these colours on my needles, I feel so excited, and it's really like making me feel more confident again in finding myself. And I was talking a little bit about that in my last podcast, about finding my style, and about coming to a place where I can accept my body at the shape it is at the moment. I'm sort of more willing to start clothing myself in the way I am now. And that sort of process that I was talking about last time, and then now this with the colour, it's all of a sudden it's like, oh, I just feel like my inspiration and my creativity is kind of flooding back in a way it hasn't for months and months and months. I think I don't know if you're like this, I am never not making. Like, I always have something on my knitting needles, or I'm sewing something, or like I'm never not making. But sometimes it can become not automatic, but it doesn't have the same meaning as when that creativity just floods back, a bit like the tide, when the tide turns and the bay gets filled up again with water, and then there's that energy from the waves, and the whole mood on the beach changes. And yet hours before it was bare, the water was pulled right back, and everything was stripped back right to the bare essentials. And I feel like that process I feel like the last couple of years actually, that I've been pulled right back to the bare bones, and I've been a bit lost. And you know, it's partly to do with having been pregnant, the way my body was changing. We've moved house a couple of times, we've moved region, I was then unwell, so there's lots of big things that have been going on. But I sort of feel like it's funny how this time away, just this change of scenery, this change of routine, and the coastline, it's just reinvigorated me, I think. It's not really energized me, it's reinvigorated me, and it's really exciting. And now the challenge for me is to try to sort of contain it so that it doesn't overwhelm me, and a bit like that tide when it comes crashing up the shore and kind of filling up the beach. You've got to try to not get wet and not lose your swimming towel in the waves. So yeah, that's going to be the challenge for the coming weeks. But I feel really buoyed up, and partly as well I want to thank you for everybody who reached out to me in YouTube comments or through messages on Instagram regarding my last podcast. I was really touched by the response that I got to my discussion about finding my style, starting to feel more comfortable in my body. It's funny because I actually had to film that podcast episode twice because I had a problem with the camera, and I wasn't intending to talk about that. The first time I did it, that didn't come up at all, and yet it just kind of poured out spontaneously the second time I filmed, and I then uploaded it and I didn't really think about it anymore, and then there was this overwhelming response, and it was just so heartening for me to realise that I'm not alone, to realise that many of us go through these fluctuations in our health, in our bodies, in our shape, in our feelings about our bodies, and that, yeah, it's realising that you're not alone in going through that, and you're not alone in finding that difficult. That's really empowering. So I really, really want to thank you for reaching out to me. I really, really appreciate it. And as I'm on that subject, I have finished my cardigan, because it was this cardigan that brought up that subject. So it's casted off. I think I just had the bottom of the hem of the body to finish last time. I've just realised I've been a bit naughty. There's a couple of ends I haven't woven in yet. So here it is. Here's my lovely, lovely grey cardigan. I'll just see if I can put it on to show you. So there's two things I haven't yet done. I haven't woven in those last ends, and I also haven't yet found a button. Let's see if I can, because my button box is yet to be unpacked or uncovered, but you get the idea. And come the winter, I'm going to be really, really glad to have this as a base layer. So there'll be a button here, I think, underneath, like a hidden button, and then a button on the outside. And I've got the perfect wooden button, but I just haven't found it yet. And looking at the neckline, I tend to get quite cold there, so I'm thinking of this as a really good base neutral layer upon which I'd like to build a layer up with a shawl. So I haven't yet decided what I would like to make, but I would like in the next 3 months to knit myself a shawl for the winter. Something quite large, possibly triangular, because of that triangle there, but I want the wingspan to be wide enough. And who knows, maybe something in this colour palette could be quite nice. So yeah, I'm really excited to have this off my needles, to see it fits well. I washed it and the fit really came into its own after I'd blocked it. I love the way yarn just transforms when you, or wool when you wash it. And it was nice to finally get the spin oil off, because this, as is quite common with French yarns directly from the spinning mills, they leave the spinning oil on, which took me a while to realise that's what it was. I think it was listening to other podcasts where they talk about Holstgarn. That was, yeah, it's amazing how it's still very hardy. Like, it's not merino soft, but it has softened and it's kind of bloomed, which is lovely with the garter. So it's this lovely soft grey, so I'm really, really happy with that. I don't have any other projects to share. I don't have anything else on my needles currently. I did, in between filming, cast on a Nook sweater with some hand spun, and I was merrily working away on it for a couple of weeks whilst watching The Handmaid's Tale, which I haven't yet finished. I'm halfway through the 3rd series, so don't tell me anything. And then unfortunately the hand spun I was using, the white, I used it all up, and it didn't, I had been intending to do like a gradient from white down to grey and then to black natural colours with the kind of tweedy yarn that I had spun whilst in Brittany with Breton wool. and I just couldn't make it fade properly. And I then realised on trying it on that I had sort of overestimated my size on the pattern. I'd cast it on the XL, which according to my measurements was the right one to do, but it was just too big and I wasn't really feeling it, so I unravelled it, and I have taken it off the needles. So I don't know whether you do that. I'm quite happy to cast on things, to swatch to cast on, and then to take them off if they don't work out. I never feel like I've wasted time. It's I enjoy having my hands busy when I'm sat, and I find it very relaxing to know. I mean, I'm sure you feel the same. So yeah, I have nothing else on my needles. I want to try and continue with my blanket, but I am starting to think about what I would like to make next. I would really like another cardigan for myself. I haven't yet found the right project for me, using the yarn that I've already got in my stash. I've probably got 3 sweater quantities of yarn, possibly 4 of greys, but I haven't quite found the right one for me yet. Otherwise, I have been starting to think about what I'd like to make for the children for the Magic 3 Mal, because Mimi Liebved has actually extended. The usual deadline is end of September, I think, beginning of October. And this year, with everything that's going on, she decided to extend it, which is really great because I don't actually have anything ready. I've not made anything at all, not even a toy, I think. So I'm starting to think about what I'd like to make for the children. I'm going to try and concentrate first on my little girl, because I have quite a few skeins of suitable for a small child. It's French merino, so it's merino style. I have some lovely blues that have been in my stash since I was pregnant with my son, and I never got around to knitting, or I knitted and it didn't work out and I unravelled it. So I'd like to try and use those as a priority, because there's probably enough for something for the age of size age 2, but I don't think it will stretch much further than that. So, and she's growing fast, so I'd like to try to make her a winter hat, a kind of a shawlette or a scarf, maybe some mittens, maybe a cardigan and some socks, and also some kind of, I'd love to make her a dress for next summer when it'll be her 2nd birthday. So I might end up making 2 sets, and I might only make for her, but I'll still make a toy for our little boy, because it's something else that was really funny whilst we were away. I took a couple of teddies with me to take photos and things, and after months of not being interested in soft toys at all, my son adopted them for his own and played constantly with them on the beach. So the poor teddies got buried in the sand. They went on boat trips in the sea. One of them ended up in a bucket of water. So he's requested a bear the same size, so it's about this big. I have made him a bigger teddy over the winter, which I haven't yet shown you, which for me is more like a cuddle bear, but he already has a couple of bears that I made that he prefers. They're a bit more floppy. So this bear is just, he's a friend bear, and I'm sure he'll be played with eventually, but by someone. But so he's requested a small mohair bear, and he wants it to be jointed. So that's really good, because I've been trying for a number of years to perfect a pattern, because I would like to eventually make mohair bears that are certified safe, that could be sold to families for their children. So I'm gonna do lots of pattern testing in the coming weeks, hopefully, if I get the time. I have quite a lot of friends who are having second or third babies this year, so I think I'm going to be making bears gifts, because I'm allowed to give a toy that I make. I'm just not allowed to sell them for children unless they've been certified. So he would really like a bear. And then the other really interesting thing is, since we've come home, he found in amongst our boxes, because we still haven't yet unpacked fully, a doll that I made him for his 4th birthday. So last year, I made it for the Magic 3 Mile last year. And when I made it for him, he had requested a doll and he wanted to have blonde hair like him. So I did that. And it was the first time I'd made a Waldorf doll. And then the day I gave it to him on his birthday, he declared that he didn't like it and he didn't want it and it was horrible. And so this poor doll has been carefully tidied away in a bag for the last year. And he found it a couple of days ago and has just taken it on and requested clothes and has been setting up games and playing merrily with a couple of bears and another doll. And yeah, it's really I never like to impose playthings on the children. I like to have them like invitations to play, so they're there and they can be used in whatever way they want, and we're just careful with them and take care of them, and you know, don't throw them down the stairs or whatever. But it's just lovely to see him being quite nurturing in his play. So I found him cradling the doll, and I'd like to talk about dolls in a future episode in a bit more detail, because in the last year I've started doll making just for myself, for our family, and it's quite an interesting craft with a lot of meaning for me to explore. So yeah, that's something I'd like to talk about in a future episode. And actually, whilst we're on the subject, and as I near the end to this podcast, I just wanted to talk about a change that's going to be coming up with this channel. Since my last episode, I've had a lot of time to think and to reflect on Woollen Hearted, on my own creativity, as I said earlier in the episode, and I would like to very slowly start returning to some form of self-employment. I would like to start Woollen Hearted up again in a more official capacity. It's kind of been hibernating for the last 18 months, in the sense that I officially closed down my status as a self-employed person whilst pregnant and took early maternity leave. And although I've been making and sharing things, I've not been selling anything, and I'm not legally allowed to at the moment. But I would like to slowly start working my way back to some form of employment. I don't know what form that will take, how many hours, how big it will be, or how small it will be, but it's something I would just like to start exploring slowly at my own pace. Obviously there's my health to take into consideration, there's family life, but Woollen Hearted is a project that I have had sustaining me for 6 years now. It's something that I have begun and started over on a number of occasions, and I would really like it to become something again. It's not going to be how it was at the start. 6 years ago I was in a situation of, I suppose you could say, burnout from my previous role as a language teacher and translator. I worked freelance, and I took a number of months off of work because I had poor health, and during that time I sort of discovered the online fibre community. I have always made things with my hands, but I had never really been connected to anyone else. I've always done it in isolation, really. And it was a revelation to me to discover that there were young people like me who not only did things as creative hobbies, but they found ways to make a living from it. They became designers or yarn producers, or various things. And I just instinctively felt like that was the place for me. And right at the start I was drawn to the idea of becoming a knitwear designer, and I found an online Sitting Guilds course, which is Sitting Guilds in the UK is like a an official body that offers qualifications. I think it's the equivalent of an A level, this course, or a BTEC, I can't quite remember. And I actually enrolled on it 6 years ago in September, and I began it, but then it was too much and I had to stop. But so I originally thought I was drawn to knitwear design. In between I discovered spinning, and I felt like I wanted to become a yarn producer, which is something I would still like to do, but not in the way I originally thought, because I think it's a easy way of becoming burnt out. Producing yarn is a lot of work, it's a lot of hours, it's a lot of preparation, and I don't know how easy it is to be properly remunerated for the work that you do. So I toyed with the idea of dyeing yarn. I began doing learning about natural dyes. I bought quite a lot of yarn from French mills in order to do that. And right at the start of that year when I started becoming unwell, I started knitting teddy bears, and I originally thought, I could use local wool, so I bought some local wool, and then I discovered spinning, and I thought I could spin the wool and then knit the bears, and I tried, but I wasn't really very satisfied with the results. So that kind of idea just went to the back of my head. And then a year after our son was born, I just had this desire to make him a mohair teddy bear, and it was like all of these things suddenly all coming together. The design aspect, the fibre aspect, the yarn dyeing aspect, because I dye my mohair sometimes and I dye my yarn for making clothes for the bears. It all kind of came together, and for me, making teddy bears, whether I make them for grown-ups or for children, I just feel at home doing that. That is like my thing. It's what I want to pursue. I have so many ideas, and I really, really want to slowly find a way of bringing those ideas to life. It's a passion project, and it really, I can't believe almost that it's been 6 years, and yet although it's changed and evolved and the name's changed and everything sort of it's been fluid and organic, I'm still excited by it 6 years on, and I still want to do it. And so I think for me that kind of reassures me that it is my thing. And so I have this channel, Woollen Hearted, as a kind of complement to my Instagram and my blog, which is very forlorn and very neglected at the moment. And I originally started this channel because I wanted to join the conversation of podcasts. I wanted to tell stories about my making, my kind of more personal making, and I wanted to have a way that I could express sort of this part of my creativity. And that desire to share my creativity is still there, that desire to tell stories is still there, but I don't really want to tell stories about my personal making anymore. I have felt in the last year this burning desire to podcast, but at the same time this kind of anxiety, because I'm a very slow knitter, I'm a slow spinner, I'm a slow sewer. Things take time for me, and I can't help, as much as I try, to not feel kind of pressured that I've got to produce things and you've got to have something to show, and am I making something just to have something to show? And I don't want to work like that. So what I would like to do with this channel is to stop podcasting and begin vlogging, and to keep a studio vlog. So I would like to be able to talk more kind of freely about Woollen Hearted as this wool activity, this fibre-based activity. I would like to document my journey back to self-employment. I would like to share the ups and downs of that, because I think it's really interesting for other people to see. I know I get a lot from seeing other people's experiences as freelancers, and I will, of course, if I'm knitting on something, if I make a hat or I knit something for my children, I'd love to share it with you, but I want the main focus to be on my bear making, because it is really the thing that ignites me. And I have toyed with the idea in the last couple of months of starting a Patreon, because I want to kind of be able to freely talk about all this stuff. But it bothers me that that would mean it would be paying and it would be a very small audience. I'm just going to change my battery. Okay, we're back again. Yeah, it bothers me that that content wouldn't be freely available to people, because it would be just as much a creative project for me as making bears, as anything else, because I'm interested in filmmaking and I'd like to have the opportunity to explore even that side a little bit more. So all of that's to say, I don't know when my next video will be. It might be next week, it might be in a month's time, but this is the last podcast number 11, which it's been 2 years since I began, and I'm quite proud that I've managed to do 11 episodes. And I just want to thank you so much for being here, whether you've been here right from the start or whether you've joined recently. I really, really value your support, your presence, your encouragement here and in the other places where we meet socially online. And if what I've just talked about, what I'd like to start filming aspects of my making, talking more specifically about techniques and materials and maybe some tutorials and things. If none of that interests you, I just want to bid you a really fond farewell. I'm so grateful that you've been here for whatever time you have been, and I just want to wish you well. But if you do want to stay, and if you're happy to see lots of teddy bears, and you know, there will still be knitting, there will still be natural dyeing, there will still be spinning, it just will be a bit different. It won't be the same format. I would love to have you come along with me, and yeah, I feel like this is the right way to go now. I feel excited, I feel curious, and yeah, I just want to see what comes next. So as I said, this is a fond farewell to the Woollen Hearted podcast. But I do hope that you'll join along with me. So see you again very soon. Take care. Bye bye.